Hi, I'm Cassandra Clare, and I'm the author of the high fantasy novel Swordcatcher. This is the story of a young boy named Kel who, when he is only 10, is taken from an orphanage and brought to the palace of Castellane, where he becomes the swordcatcher, the body double for the prince. He must step in for Prince Conor every time that Conor needs to attend an event that could potentially be dangerous or where there's a situation where he might be assassinated. It's also the story of a girl named Lin Caster, who is a member of the Ashkar people, the few people left in the world who can do magic and who are shunned because of that. She is a physician, but she's had to struggle very, very hard to become a doctor, both because she is an Ashkar woman and because she is a woman. So these two characters pursue both sort of parallel paths in this novel, but their paths also intersect. And I've seen people talk about the trope of the outcast when they're talking about Swordcatcher, and I've always found that really interesting because to me, an outcast is someone who is shunned by their community. But it's clear that outcast has taken on something of a wider meaning and a kind of new meaning as a trope in online conversation, and I always find it incredibly interesting when the meanings of words expand and change. What I would say about both Lin and Kel is that I did not initially conceive of them as outcasts, but as outsiders. But I do think that those two concepts intersect and overlap. In this case, what we're talking about is two characters who occupy what I would call a liminal space, a space between. Neither of them are exactly one thing. And for instance, Kel is not exactly himself when he's pretending to be Conor. He is also not exactly himself when he is pretending to be the prince's cousin, which is how he is known by everyone who knows him in the palace, as his identity as Swordcatcher is secret. Lin is someone who, because she is a doctor, can go out into the city of Castellane and pass among the Castellane people who know her as a doctor, but she is also an Ashkar woman, which means that at night she must return to the walled city where the Ashkar live and be locked in and away from everyone else. So she moves among the people of Castellane, but she is not of the people of Castellane. And because both of them are liminal figures, it puts them in a position where they are both outside. They cannot fully inhabit themselves. They cannot fully have access to everything that their position would offer them if that position was uncomplicated, untrammeled, in Kel's case, if it was honest and forthright. But they are able to access things that people who are not in a liminal space can access. Kel is able to meet and talk with anyone in Castellane. He isn't really constrained by the rules that constrain other royals or the very wealthy people who live on the hill above the city. He can talk to criminals, he can talk to pickpockets, he can talk to murderers and poisoners and assassins. At the same time, he can talk to noble women, he can talk to kings and princes, he can talk to foreign ambassadors. His work takes him to all of those places. Lin can be at home in the salt among her people and her culture, but she can also code switch out in the world of Castellane and talk to her patients who she treats and, talk to them about things of Castellane. She knows some of the politics of Castellane. She, knows much more about the city and how it works than other Ashkar who remain inside the salt and don't really interact with the world outside it. So both of them have both a situation in which they don't have a firm and fixed identity, but they do have access to a much wider range of people and experiences than they might otherwise have if they were not outcasts. I think the outcast trope is popular and that people enjoy reading about outcasts and outsiders because partly what I said before in terms of the fact that they can move through all strata of society. For instance, we love a private detective. And why do we love a private detective? Because the private detective can move in the world of the law and the world of crime. They're not constrained by what constrains, say, the police, who can't move in the world of crime. And we love that idea that people can move from one world to another. I also think that, we're inclined to root for the underdog. In this case, Kell doesn't really have his own life. His life has been signed away to the palace. And Lin has had to struggle so incredibly hard to become a doctor because she is a woman. And even then, she is still looked down on because she is Ashkar, because she is female. And I think in these cases, we root for people to overcome the prejudices of others, and get, the lives that they need and deserve. And so I feel like that's part of the fun of reading about the outcast, and also the reason why we tend to root for them. I find it a lot of fun to write about this kind of characters, precisely because they can go anywhere and do anything and talk to anyone. And I especially enjoyed once the Ragpicker King, who is the sort of head of all crime in Castellane, approaches both Lin and Kell, recognizing them as these outcasts, these outsiders and liminal figures, and invites them to work with or for him. And they can do that precisely because they don't inhabit a specific fixed place by which they would be risking everything to associate themselves with this guy who is a criminal. And he recognizes also their ability to move in many different strata of Castellane, and he wants to use that. And I think that that was a huge amount of fun for me, and I just really enjoyed writing these two characters and the ways in which their outcast status brought up just really fascinating issues of prejudice and identity and belonging that are explored in Swordcatcher. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy Swordcatcher and have as much fun with it as I did.